so this is Mr. Chambers, everybody.
We're on over here.
You're on.
Over here. Okay, so if there's any problem with the voice, you got this one.
You're good, you're good.
My name is Pete Chambers. I met most of you. If somebody slipped in, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to meet you. I'm not a politician. That's the first thing out of the gate. And you may know that because soldiers are not politicians. Matter of fact, we are to abstain from discussion of politics at all times. Right in the group, we just can't talk about it. We have our opinions, but we don't talk about it. So you have to hold those things in. But as a guy that came in under Ronald Reagan in 1983, when I was 18 years old, who was probably the best president we've ever had, in my opinion. His policies, the way that he would work on both sides of the aisle, and they would have discussions and dialogues. And to where we were when I got out in 2022 under Brandon, truly, where we got to a place where we're having dialectics and narratives and fake news. There's a big difference in those two eras. What I propose is we bring that back. We bring that era of transparency and truth and trust. Because for me, if I can't trust the people that I work with in my former job, people die. And it's a zero defect environment, which means when people make mistakes, soldiers die. And I've had to live in that world for a long time. I got out in I got a discharge, honorable discharge in 1990, thinking, well, it was great being an enlisted guy, but I think I'm going to go to college and do what my dad did, which he was a small town doctor when he started. That's what I grew up on, doing house calls, sitting in the truck with a rollback bag and watching a man that was as hard as could be. And we had a little horse ranch and we had a hobby farm, and we just enjoyed our town, about 3,000 people. We knew everybody. Matter of fact, my town raised me. Right? That's the kind of town it was. When there was a tornado, my town would go help this town. This town would help that town. And he would go out and he would trade for preserves if somebody didn't have money. He didn't work for a corporation. He didn't like paying taxes either. Right? That's my dad. Hard man. And he raised me right because he taught me to be patriotic and to give back to this country what we got. So at 17 years old, he marched me down and helped me sign in so that by 18 I could be at Fort Benning, Georgia, on my way to becoming a soldier. Not the fancy, just a soldier. Protect the nation. Be a watchman. Ezekiel chapter 33. You are a watchman, son. You're a watchman. What does that mean? That means if you see the enemy coming, or you see something that's about to hurt your people, you sound the alarm. If you don't sound the alarm, it's on your head, son. That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay. The same thing that I heard when Sergeant First Class Jesse Canales, 1983, 9th of September, 1983, when I showed up at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was just an E1 private, and Sergeant First Class Jesse Canales looked at me from Puerto Rico and he said, "This is your first general order." Puerto Rican guy, the best Puerto Rican. Guard everything in the limit of your post. You quit your post only when properly relieved. And they taught us a few more general orders. You will guard everything within the limits of your post, and you will quit your post only when properly relieved. That's a general order. That means when I was sitting there in 1985 looking at North Korea through binoculars, if the Chinese horde showed up, 20-year-old Chambers, E4, I got to sound the alarm. Now let's fast forward. I finished my active duty time in 2015. I left Fort Bragg. I was in 3rd Special Forces Group, 2nd Battalion. They're called the Bush Hogs. They're Green Berets. We fought in the hardest places in the world, and I took care of the finest men in the world. That would give their life for every one of you 100 times over. And some of them did. I didn't know all the kids that I put in body bags, but I put 21 Americans. I sent them home in dignified transfers. When you see an American flag flying, or if I'm at a football game and I see somebody fooling around, I can't say anything to them, but I look at it a little bit different. When I hear the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem, I think about it just a little bit different. So remember those flags. That's dedication, because that, when anybody in here, raise your hand, please, if you've served in the military. All right, now raise your hand if you've got somebody in the military in your family. There you go, right there. You are also on the team, because you're the backside support that makes that soldier, airman, Marine, whatever. Coast Guard, not really, no, I'm just kidding. You are the one that's back home, not knowing what's going on. It's harder for you. We know what we're doing. But when you sign on that dotted line, as I became an officer later, I used to tell soldiers, you signed a check that's payable with your life, dedicated to, I don't have the U.S. Constitution in here. This is the Texas Constitution. It's an old copy of it. Dedicated to protecting and defending this. Now we're running for office here, not for governor. We already whooped the British. I'm running for senior public servant. Let's keep it right. Because the problem with a lot of these folks is they get in there and they stay in there too long. I'm a term limit guy. And they forget about their original oath. They forget about their original oath. So the answers to the test are in here. Right? And the answer to life's tests are in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When somebody asked me, well, who's your campaign manager? Well, when we kicked this off, we didn't have, here's what we did. I'm just going to be transparent. Here's what we did. I went to the bank and I said, I'm going to start a campaign to run for governor. And the bank manager came out, the president came out, and then one of the board members wanted to meet, and they're waiting. I walked in there, I took $1 out of my pocket, and I said, I want to put this in the bank account. And they said, oh, okay, he's not serious. I said, no, because I want to demonstrate the glory of God.
Amen.
All of this is what we do.
Amen.
Because we have to keep going there. So when they say, well, you got to hire this is them telling us, people in the politics world, you got to hire a campaign manager. So the first one I called, he wanted $5 million.
Whoa.
The second one I called, he said, well, I'll do it for half. I'm like, can we have a discount campaign manager? I found one for free.
Amen.
That's right.
All I gotta do is I gotta believe. I gotta have faith. Things unseen. That's right. They will happen.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna tell you a little bit as I give you a campaign update why I know that's true. Because people need hope. Now, my troops in Afghanistan, 24 of them in the Gob Valley, there's a plane flying overhead, it's called a Predator. It's a drone, and it's calling down to them and it's saying, hey, 24 Green Berets, guess what? You've got 300 Taliban inbound to your location. Hang tough until we get some planes over to you. And my guys looked at each other and said, a target-rich environment. We don't quit. We take on things that are impossible seemingly. But when you have hope in this,
Amen.
you know that there's an eternity.
Amen.
That matters. Now, we want to go home to our families. That was my job, to make sure I took as many home with us as we could. Why'd they send me to Green Beret School? So I could be right there on the X with them. Now, I didn't kick the doors. They didn't want the doctor doing that. But I was the first guy to put a hand on them to stop the bleeding. I'm a plumber on the battlefield. Get me out here on one of these rigs. I guarantee you I can stop the bleeding. Guarantee you. It's pretty easy. But when you do it under fire, it's a little bit different situation. But when those boys were in that district center, and they said, well, we sure hope they don't attack, I'd say, hope is not a plan, son. You've got to have a plan. I can hope all day long. I can wish. There's some things I can't say that go along with that. We'll just sleep it there. Hope in one hand. Right? Another one we used to say on the Red River is, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. There's a different version of that one too. Why do I go there? Why do I tell that story? Because you've got to know the background of this fellow if you're going to vote for him. If you already have, thank you. Because that means you have faith. Faith that I'm going to do what I have to do. To break some things, to hurt some feelings, to fire some people, to break up the you know what a cartel is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you look in the dictionary, there's also a political cartel.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a political cartel going on. Matter of fact, anybody listen out here to an economist named Catherine Austin Fitts, she says, we don't have an economic problem. We have a political problem. That's what she said. Now, she's a lot smarter than me on economics. So I listen to people like that, and I take note of that. I study history. I studied medicine. I was a flight surgeon. All these things set it up so that I could drink all the information of Texas in the last 4 months from a fire hose. Try to assimilate it. Can I learn it all? No. An honest man will tell you he doesn't know what he doesn't know. That's why we have task forces that are built already, because we are going to run this 400. Right? The incumbent is running a marathon. They've been running it for a while. They just got to finish out their race for me from August until March. Not very long. I'm running a 400. I'm in the blocks, and I'm coming around the last turn right now, and I'm not slowing down. We can't slow down because you're too important. Because you're too important, right? When somebody, thank you, sir. When somebody tells me, "Thank you for your service," I learned this from a Marine that lost his legs jumping on a grenade. A young kid, a kid of faith that was raised right. He jumped on a grenade. They thought he was going to die. They got his legs, took care of. He doesn't have his legs anymore, but he was in a cab in New York City, and he said this. He said, gentleman was driving, said, "Well, thank you for your service." And this kid said, "You're worth it, sir." Wow. From the mouths of babes. 20-year-old kid. I got a son that's 25. I can't even imagine. I can because I've taken care of him. And he said that. So when somebody says that to me, "Thank you for your service," I say, "You're worth it," because you are. Right? Because Christ considered us worth it.
That's right.
He was God. Right? So you're worth it. So that's me, Chambers, okay? So just so you understand, that's my character. That's the metal that I'm made of. Right? I've lost men right next to me in combat. I've met their moms when I came home. And I had a mom tell me one time, and I said, I was in Seattle, Washington. I said, "Ma'am, you can slap me, you can hate me." I was his commander. I was a captain at the time. I was responsible, remember this now, for everything that happens or fails to happen. That's a commander. I don't do like what we had, that embarrassment there at Guadalupe corridor when it flooded.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of people that came in from the House and the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor, and all they did was point fingers at each other saying, "Whose fault it was? Whose fault it was?" And then we hear, "Well, I can't lower taxes, it's the lower level, the local level that does that." No, you're responsible for everything that happens or fails to happen. There's a job description that comes with jobs. I'm sure y'all had a job description before. I know we do in the military. It's delineated out by detail. Anytime I took a new job, I read the job description. Well, it's actually in this 1876 copy. It also says in this 1876 copy that the governor gets to make $2,000 a year. Well, a little bit low. I think we can make it. Get this building. But what I do know is that the job description of the governor of the state of Texas is responsible for the budget. Number one.
Amen.
Number one. That means that the budget's messed up. That also goes into school bonds and bond issues. If we're nearly insolvent, there's some people you can listen to out there. Insolvent meaning we're using money to pay for debt. So it's just some kind of imaginary debt table we've got going on here. But yet we're able to build a tomball, a $20 million football stadium. I love football too. I wasn't very good at it. I just ran fast. The other one that I saw was a $40 million stadium in Montgomery County. Football stadium. Now, I don't know about you, you did play. Grass, metal bleachers will work.
Yeah.
The team will be good. But what we've seen is, what we got to bring in to star kids. So then it becomes bread and circuses. That's why Rome fell. We focused on the things that we are not supposed to focus on when we have an invasion going on in our country right now.
Yeah.
This is going to be the Green Beret side of it. As a Lieutenant Colonel, Green Beret specialist in counterterrorism, unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, bioweapons, and weapons of mass destruction, I can tell you, as a liaison directly to Governor Abbott during Operation Lone Star, as a liaison directly to Governor Abbott's task force, right? So what does that mean? Well, I'm a liaison. That means I speak between the military and the governor's staff. I've only spoken to the governor one time face-to-face in the Del Rio hangar when 17,000 Haitians showed up in 48 hours. We thought there was going to be 700. That's what they reported. They sent 40 of us down there to meet them. That was in the dark. We held off 700 of them as long as we could. By morning's light, we saw it was 20,000 roughly. 17,000 made it across. Now I'm sitting there with the governor, and I'm briefing him, and I said, and he saw me there, there's a picture of it, it's on the website. And I've taken a knee because I'm respectful of the commander-in-chief, that's job description number 2, by the way. Commander-in-chief of the 30th largest army in the world, that's Texas. We should be proud of that.
Yeah.
The Texans are on the front. Audie Murphy. Remember that guy?
Yep.
Right? That was the last unit that I left out of on the border. That unit that I left out of, it has a battle streamer. You guys that have been in, or ladies that have been in, you understand a battle streamer. Unit flag is flying, and there's these little streamers on the side. They say the different battles they've been in. The one that they sent me to, the very last unit that I got out of the military, it says the Alamo on it. The first commander was William Barrett Travis. It might have been prophetic.
Amen.
Right? So we show up down to the border. I'm down there meeting with the governor, and I take a knee because he's the commander-in-chief, and I look a man straight in the eye. And I said, sir, he said, what can I do for you? I said, sir, we've been fighting Haitians all night. He goes, okay, how many Green Berets do you have? He sees me, I'm wearing one. He knows me, he's met me before. It's in a handshake. I said, we need more. You've heard of one riot, one ranger? He said, of course I have. I said, one humanitarian crisis, one Green Beret, and this time it's not enough. Well, what's the difference between a Green Beret and a regular soldier? The fact that you can negotiate at high levels. We are called warrior diplomats. We're sent overseas in small units to meet with kings and to meet with Congress when we come back, and to affect the change on at least one of my operations, $1.1 billion as we went into Syria from Jordan. And then I've got to go back to Congress and say, hey, they're wasting our money. They're wasting our money. And they cut that budget in half because we told the truth. Even though the ambassador said, oh, we don't want to make the king mad. I'm like, what about the taxpayers, ma'am?
Yeah.
And they said, we just go on there. Okay. So I take these things and I take them dear because it's your money. It's my money. Right? We work for it, we give it to them, and sometimes we give it to them haphazardly because the attitude that they have is, I'm in charge, and I'm not really gonna do what I say until it's election time. And I'm gonna put that carrot out there again. I'm gonna put that carrot out there again. So these are just facts. So we meet with the governor, I do personally, and then we set up an appointment to meet with the staff, and we say, 4 years ago, roughly, you also need to declare foreign terrorist organization designation, FTO, on these particular, this is with his staff, on these particular organizations. There's about 9 that we gave at that time. Because we're the ones seeing them coming across the border, right? There's 120 countries coming across. We had no authority to do anything that watch. No authority to do anything that put them into camps with the Border Patrol. And then they put them on buses. On the governor's own website says, they transported hundreds of thousands to other cities. Now you're aiding and abetting an invasion. You say this isn't an invasion. Well, let me ask you, somebody brings fentanyl across the border, which is a chemical, and it kills people. Is that not chemical warfare?
Yes.
Does that not demoralize, destabilize? Does that not create a situation where we could be disenfranchised from our leaders that we don't trust? We want to trust our leaders. We have to trust them. And that's why you must vet people. That's why I go and shake everybody's hand, look them in the eyes, so they know that I'm not just some dude that wants to do this, because I didn't. Bottom, Texas on Pentecostal last year, there was a campfire. He was there. Right? They ambushed me. You guys ambushed me. Would you run for governor? I said, no, sir. Not at all. Not at all. I was perfectly happy working counter human trafficking and chasing bad guys and giving a hand over cops. Right? That's what we did. These big fellas and a few other people. And we did some emergency relief on North Carolina and Guadalupe. Something happens, you live in a world of chaos, you learn how to control the control. That's what we did. I said, okay, I'll pray about it. Well, here I am. Right? Not that I didn't hear an audible yes or a no, I didn't. But I met people and I talked to people and I said, what do you think? And I pray with people. What do you think? I asked Alan West. Yes, you should. I asked General Flynn. Yes, you should. Well, can I do it feasibility-wise? Can we get to that end state in a 400 versus a marathon, and they're coming in the last leg? They're probably about a mile ahead of us. Yes, you can. How do you do it? Your Green Beret figured it out. Thanks, guys. That's okay. Because what my job is downrange is to go into foreign places and in foreign languages convince people to fight against the tyrannical government. That's my job. If we can do that in a foreign language, I'm sure I can convince enough Texans to vote. This is an off-cycle primary during the Allen West, Prather, and Huffines race. 1.6 million people roughly voted out of 20 million. It's an off-cycle primary right now. Right? So now we go into putting them on our battlefield. Now I start putting on the unconventional war thinking cap and going, how do I mobilize enough? If we were combat, you'd be called guerrillas. You motivate guerrillas to fight combat. But in this case, I've got to motivate enough Texans with truth to say, we can do this. We started out very slow. And we kind of did this as we're going along, right? And then all of a sudden, we got a blip in the system. Somebody endorsed us, not politicians. We don't take politicians endorsements, right? Now they can do it. We don't post it on our website for a reason. It doesn't matter. I want your endorsement, right? So then we go asymptotic now. That's where we're at now. When people start slinging money at us saying, he only has this amount of money there, it's impossible. But then why are we in the pole position of all the people that are going along against that? Why are we? There's a reason why. Because of truth. The truth shall set you free. People are looking for honesty. They want somebody that's going to be able to talk to them. And like we do our called fireside chats every day, we'll continue that. Right? We'll continue it every day. For the first, I've already vowed, the first 90 days in office, fireside chat. It'll be 20 minutes. But you're going to know where we're at, so I'm going to brief you and say, remember all that stuff I told you? This is where we're at with each item. And I got task forces. And the task forces, they're out there right now working on taxes, working on H-1B visa problem, working on F-1B problem, F-1 visa problem, working on batteries in the ground, working on AI data centers, working on the oil problem. I'm friends with Matlock. I like it. He's got some good plans. Right? And he's an honest man who loves Jesus as well. Now that's not my criteria for anything, because when it is for most of them. But with regard to this, the question I have to ask myself is, can I work with this person? Now, if there's a character flaw and it goes beyond what I can work with, then I'm sorry. Now, if you cuss too much or something like that, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I can handle it. Right? But what I've got to have is somebody that I can work with. I can work with that man. Right? I don't know. I've met all of them. But I can work with that man. The easiest. Now, here's the deal. Where are we at now? This whole thing, where are we at now on this little scale? You told me we're going up like this. There have been 3 polls done. 2 of them are not scientific polls, they're on X. But 8,000 people voted, and they both polls separately got 88% for us. Right? I appreciate that. That's not a scientific poll, but when David went out and took a census, he got slapped for it. Right? He got slapped for it. So we don't do polls. Matter of fact, somebody put us in contact with Rasmussen, and they said, well, our minimum cost for a poll is $100,000. Well, that would have made up our whole campaign fund if we had available. No. So I'm going to tell you something really interesting. Is it when we got attacked by a gentleman, I'm going to keep this off the air because I don't get these little tit for tat fights, but we got attacked by somebody pretty big. And when Texas showed up and attacked them back, I went up 10,000 viewers on X. That's no big deal. But what ended up showing up in the bank account was 4 times what we got the last month. 4 times in 4 days.
Heck yeah.
Right? And it's just continuing. So the guy that's sitting in the rear with the gear, typing stuff in there, going, Doc, I don't know what's happening. Every time we put one in, there's like 12 more that pop up. Keep going.
That's what I'm talking about.
Ethics committee happy. Right? Doing it fair. And we're not taking, by the way, any money from any other country. We're not taking money from any other country. Our largest donation was a roofer, Blanco, who gave us $20,000. You can look it up.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right, so what does that say? That tells me that the bulk of our money that we're getting in the hundreds of thousands now is from people that give $18.36 because we made that a significant deal. We're coming up on the 24th of February, the day that William Barrett Travis wrote inside the Alamo the same thing that I wrote on about 9 compounds downrange. So to all Texans and Americans in the world, fellow citizens and compatriots, we are besieged on all sides. Then he said enemies under Santa Ana. Now, some people joke and say Santa Ana. I won't go there. That's what they say. But it's not that. The enemies are principalities and rulers of darkness.
Amen.
Their minions who work for them are World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
Investors that look at Texas like it's an investment tool.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants the AI data centers? Microsoft. Who's investing in it? Primarily out of Canada. All right, we're going to take your water, Abilene. That's the only one I've investigated. We're going to use 254 million gallons of your water in a year, 23 to 24. We're going to promise you a net positive return so we can cool your servers in Abilene, so that AI data center. We're going to bring a lot of money to your county because you'll be able to tax us. Yet there's certain things deals that have been made that doesn't bring that. And then people swear that it's going to be a zero positive gain at the end. I mean, a net positive gain. And then why is it that the water bills are going up in Abilene?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it the electricity is going up in Abilene? Why does it cost $300 a night for a hotel room in Abilene?
Wow.
We couldn't stay in there. We stayed in the rig. We're running a streamlined campaign. Matter of fact, General Flynn called me 3 days ago now in that camper out there and said, Pete, you're running the most efficient campaign in Texas history. The number we have to. I pray we get a good contract. Wow. I don't know.
Speaking of which, are you?
That's a dangerous question,
Okay.
especially where I'm Mike, because if I take that, I take on enemies.
Very
I
well.
like somebody. Can I work with them? I can work with anybody. But I'm not going to be the czar. That's a Russian thing. You know, but I'm going to be able to work with anybody. I like what people say. Nobody's perfect. There's lots of things going around about different people, and I just don't get into that because it's drama. I lost my emotions in 1985. One of my sergeants got rid of my emotions when it comes to work. And I see one of these little kids that these guys pull out. We had one not too long ago. We arrested him. Well, he did. I was there along for the ride. When you see the eyes of a child that's been rescued, that's heaven on earth.
Amen.
Absolutely.
That's got to be our priority in Texas because about 350,000 kids missing that came across that border from Texas.
You don't have a problem pulling rank though, when you get there though, I mean.
Oh, no, there's gonna be people crying, gnashing
Yeah.
of teeth.
Yeah.
I'll probably fire some people. And here's the deal. When I got fired from Texas Military Department, because I did informed consents, told the soldiers, you don't have to take it, here's a brief, you can make a decision. And in Texas, I'm gonna do a reenactment. Here comes the general, 2-star. I'm down to the border. Chambers, I love you. I'm just Lieutenant Colonel. Well, he's gonna play this game with me called rock, paper, rank. Right? And so he said, you look terrible down here. Washington D.C. is telling us that nobody's taking the shots down here on the border. I said, well, they don't have to. It's an Army regulation. It's a personal choice. But it's a policy now. It ain't about the science. I said, sir. I said, now come on. Well, they wrote me a letter. They wrote me some nasty letters. The head of the Texas Military Department, he said, he came in and got my chili in my face. Quit sending the shot teams back from McAllen. I said, sir. This letter is an unlawful order. You're telling me not to do something that's required by regulation. Despite what I think about the oath that I took to medicine, despite any of that, I take oaths, I take them serious. I got a general in my face with a 1-star standing there and a bird colonel next to him. When I said unlawful order, he turned red. I was fired off that border about a week later. They took me and they took me out of my special forces unit, slapped me on the wrist. They sent me over to Camp Mabry and put me in a closet with a stamp so I could stamp physicals when they came through. You got a senior lieutenant colonel, Green Beret doctor, flight surgeon, doing physical stamps, not even seeing patients. They're afraid I might talk to them, tell them the truth. Well, what happened from that? I testified in a SEALs versus Department of Defense case while I was still in uniform. Now, when a lieutenant colonel goes up against the DOD, life sucks for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell the truth, life sucks. It took them 2 years to pay me my retirement pay. Somehow they lost my paperwork. Somehow my DD-214 wasn't filled out right. Somehow you didn't submit this right. 2 years. It's all right. Survived. Went to work saving kids. Sold my cattle. I had 48 head of Corianis. That's all I had. I was going to build that so I could retire, kind of like secondhand lines. I was going to be that guy on the porch. But there's things that are bigger and more important. When they came and said, would you run, I said, yes. I said, yes, about a week later. And when I run, now we're jumping out of the plane. The only way to get back in the plane you're jumping out of is to become a toe jumper. That means your static line didn't let you loose, banging on the side of the fuselage. That's a bad place, I've never been that. But you're gonna get to the ground, and that's where we're at. Now here's the other poll. This is a scientific poll. It was done by a wildcatter from out here in Colorado City, and he's a mid-level oil guy. By the way, mid-level oil guys, 80% of Texas oil comes from. 20% of it's big corporations, and they've got the lobbyists. And we wonder why they're trying to squash the mid-level. Why that job of railroad commissioner is so important. But I learned some things from that guy, and he paid for the poll. It wasn't a huge poll, but it was enough. We're sitting right now at ±4 standard deviations to be able to draw a runoff. So that's victory, because that's the point that when General Flynn saw it, and they were talking about there down in Florida. They said, well, we might have to pay attention to this guy, but the media won't. The media's not talking about it. If they put out a poll, they don't even talk about the gubernatorial race, they talk about all the rest. So this is a briefing back to you to say that we're not wasting your money, we're not wasting your time. I love driving around the state, but I'd much rather be on the ranch raising cattle. But for me, I decided to put this different, public servant uniform on, not to sit in Austin, but to be back out on the road again doing exactly this. I got these in my hand just to show you. This is a Texas flag with a Velcro on it. I had a big one of these on my body armor. That's the only flag I have on my body armor. This is the actual combat flag I wore for a while. It's an IR, you can see it. It sticks on your sleeve there because you're always going forward, right? This one right here was the only flag I had in my uniform. I don't take money from anything else other than these places.
Amen.
I don't take money from corporations that have I've already turned a few down, 2, 3 down. I had one lady, she was gonna give us a lot of money. She was a multi-millionaire, almost close to a billionaire. And then she started calling me all the time and telling me I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna do this. And I said, ma'am, I'm driving. On the speakerphone, I said, ma'am, that's how rhinos get started.
Ooh.
All she said was, click. I haven't heard from her since. I said, ma'am, I was being polite. I said, that's how rhinos get started. I've seen it. I have a very good friend who is an acquaintance now, who was a Speaker in the House of the United States of America. I do the math, try to figure it out, doesn't matter. But I saw a young man who was a freshman congressman sell his soul along the way. Because when you are sequestered in a high position like that, you are now insulated. And you don't listen to what the people say anymore. Right? You see handlers following them around. He's not my handler. Now, I can't handle him, but he's not my handler. I speak for myself. I speak words of truth. When I make a deal with someone and I look them in the eye, I don't need a contract for it. They know I'm going to do it.
Amen.
When Lara Logan first interviewed me, she said, I know this guy Pete Chambers pretty well. And she said, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Right? Lara Logan is a beast. If you're a liar, she can tear you up. I saw her do it to a congressman, not appointee. Somebody was running for state rep right in this town at an event. I don't know if they remember it. We're doing it on time. We're going to get to a question here in a second.
Mr. Pete, I want to
Yeah.
thank you for your service. Seems like you've got a lot of experience in the military.
Yes, sir.
However, my concern and the reason I'm here is to find out
Uh-huh.
when you get into office, what is your first important agenda
Yeah.
for Texas?
Yes, sir.
And the citizens of Texas.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah.
We have a problem in Texas. We're deteriorating our constitution. Sharia law is at its full force.
Thank you.
We must stop that.
Yes.
I want to see you focus on
Yeah.
that. Saving our constitution, saving our children,
Yep.
saving the American people in Texas. Number
Very good
two,
question. Go ahead.
taxes.
Yep.
We have gone over and beyond the 3.5 in every state and city of Texas. And this is not really the governor's problem, because when you get there, you will monitor and you will control that. However, you also have the duties to coordinate and to see that each state, Abilene, San Angelo, Dallas, comply with the regulations of Texas